Dear student, let us recapitulate the first chapter of civics, class 9. What is democracy? Why democracy? Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. And we studied about a case study where a regular election was there, but the elected person, he was not having the right to take the final decision. In Pakistan, General Musharraf led a military coup in October 1999, overthrew elected government, and in August 2002 he issued a framework to increase his power and General Musharraf, he was having the final power with him. He dismissed the assemblies, and the elected leaders, they were not having any power. Now, dear student, let us write some question related to this case study. Now answer the following. When was military coup in Pakistan? Who led a military coup in Pakistan? Can we say Pakistan is a democratic country? Why? In this way, the first feature of democracy is the final decision-making power must rest with the elected by the people. We studied next case study, China. In China, election was held regularly after 5 years. Chinese parliament was known as National People's Congress. Candidate needs to take the approval of Chinese Communist Party. Government was always formed by the Communist Party only. There was no opposition, nothing. Next case study was Mexico. It got independence in 1930. PRI always won the election. PRI always plays dirty trick to win the election. The full form of PRI is Institutional Revolutionary Party. Now let us write some question answers related to this case study. First is, name the Parliament of China. Which party makes government always? Which party makes government always in China? When Mexico got independence? Write the full form of PRI. Write down the dirty tricks by PRI to win the election. Is China and Mexico a democratic country? Why? Now, in this way, the second feature was there must be free and fair election. The next case study was Zimbabwe, where we studied Zimbabwe got independence in 1980. ZANU-PF was the ruling party. Mugabe, the president, changed the constitution many times in order to make himself very strong. Censorship was there. Opposition were harassed. Now let us write some question answer related to this case study. Dear student, first of all, listen to the first video we sent in the previous class. After that, you write the answers. When Zimbabwe became independent from white minority rule? Name the party of Zimbabwe. Name the president of Zimbabwe. Is Zimbabwe a democratic country? Why? Next question. Give 3 examples to prove that political equality is still missing in many countries of the world. Read this paragraph and answer the question that I just read for you. This is the answer. 3 examples are given in Saudi Arabia, Estonia, Fiji. You please go through this paragraph and find out the answer. Now, let us recapitulate about the demerits of democracy. Leader keeps changing, more political competition is there, leads to delay in decision taking, corruption. Now let us study the merits of democracy. To correct our own mistake is the merits of democracy. It is more accountable form of government. It improves the quality of decision making, deals with difference and conflict, enhances the dignity. Dear student, we discussed about the merits and demerits of our democracy. At the present scenario, you people might be hearing in the news, now we are in the age of pandemic of coronavirus. Just you see in the news how China is working for coronavirus, how there the press is not free to express their own views. No opposition is there. No one is criticizing the government. The government is the monopolistic government. Yeah, you can say autocratic, dictatorship type of government. What means nothing is coming from their side. The condition here is becoming worse day by day. If it was a democratic government, this was not the scenario of China. On other hand, India is a successful democratic country and is a welfare state. In the present scenario, our country is starting many policies for the coronavirus ridden patient and taking many precautions. It's working for poor and unemployed. Our government is legitimate, responsible and answerable government. Our press is free. Opposition is doing its work, cooperating and criticizing the government also, side by side. So, at last we can say, democracy is the best type of government if you compare with other type of government. Dear student, these are the questions. Try to answer the questions. Actually, all the things we have discussed in the video, you listen to the video carefully and write the answers. These are some extra questions. All of you jot it down, write in your copy and complete it. So dear student, these were the extra questions which you have to complete in your copy. Complete it neatly and clearly. Now let us study the last topic of this chapter, broader meaning of democracy. Dear student, democracy is of two types. One is direct democracy, other is indirect democracy. Our country is a very populous country and we cannot have direct democracy. In direct democracy, the voting or the decision are taken by a few numbers of people and decision is student. Let us study the last topic of this chapter, broader meaning of democracy. In our country, in our country, democracy is representative type of democracy. Majority is allowed to take decision on the behalf of all people. Even the majority does not rule directly. The majority of people rule through their elected representative. This become necessary because in modern democracy, a large number of people are involved physically, impossible for them to sit together and take a collective decision. Even if they could, the citizen does not have the time, the desire or the skill to take part in all decisions. So in our country, India, a populous country, representative democracy is working well. This is known as indirect democracy. Direct democracy, where the population is less and the decision is taken by few people and the decision is the final. This is known as indirect democracy. Example is Switzerland. Our is a democratic family, democratic country. Whenever we want to take any decision, we all sit together and arrive at a consensus. True democracy will come to this country only when no one goes hungry to bed. In a democracy, every citizen must be able to play equal role in decision making. For this, we need equal right to vote, equal information, basic education, equal resources, and lot of commitment.
In the previous chapter, we discussed a simple definition of democracy. Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Let's first analyze the word rulers. Pakistan has a democratically elected government till October 1999, when General Pervez Musharraf led a military coup. A coup is the sudden, unconstitutional deposition of a legitimate government. A coup is usually led by a small group of the existing state establishment, typically the military, to replace the deposed government with another, either civil or military. After the coup in October 1999, General Musharraf declared himself the chief executive of the country. Later, he changed his own designation to president. In 2002, he held a referendum that granted him a 5-year extension. However, it was alleged that there had been a fraud in the referendum. A referendum is a direct vote in which the electorate is asked to either accept or reject a proposal. To further strengthen his power, Pervez Musharraf's next step was to amend the Constitution of Pakistan. He did this by issuing a legal framework order that gave the President the authority to dismiss the national or provincial assemblies. Elections were then held to the national and state assemblies. Thus, Pakistan had elected representatives with some powers. However, the work of the civilian cabinet was supervised by a National Security Council dominated by military officers. The military officers and General Musharraf himself had the power to override any decisions made by the civilian cabinet. Thus, the elected representatives were not the real rulers of Pakistan. Similarly, many dictatorships and monarchies have an elected parliament and government, with the real power vesting in the people not elected. If you recall the power of the USSR in communist Poland and that of the US in contemporary Iraq, the real power vested with another country in these cases. Therefore, these also cannot be regarded as people's rule or democracies. From all these examples, it is clear that in a democracy, the elected representatives of the people should have the final decision-making power. This is the first feature of democracy. Let's move on to another key word, elections. We'll analyze the example of a country where elections are held regularly, China. China has elections every 5 years. Every time the people elect the country's parliament, called Chungao Renmin Daibiao Tahui, or the National People's Congress. This parliament has almost 3,000 members from various parts of China and holds the power to appoint the presidency of the country. Some members are elected by the army. So far, it sounds like a democracy. However, not everyone can contest in these elections. Every candidate, before contesting, needs to be approved by the Chinese Communist Party. In 2002-2003, to contest elections, the candidates needed to be members of the Chinese Communist Party or one of the 8 smaller allied parties. Result: the Communist Party forms the government every time. Similarly, every 6 years, Mexico holds elections to elect its president. Until 2000, every election was won by a party called the PRI, or the Institutional Revolutionary Party. This was not because the PRI was the most popular party. The PRI won by using a number of dirty tricks. For example, all government employees and the teachers and parents of students in government schools were compelled to attend PRI meetings and vote for them. The media was also in cahoots with the PRI, reporting activities of opposition parties only to criticize them. The PRI even shifted polling booths and used large amounts of money for its candidates. So, in effect, though Mexico has never been under military or a dictator's rule, the Mexicans didn't really have a proper choice in selecting their representatives. Neither of the cases we just examined can be considered examples of people electing their rulers. The foundation of a democracy is free and fair elections, in which the ruling party also faces a fair chance of losing. That is the second feature of a democracy. Let's move on to the third and the most important keyword, people. Even today, there are many places where the equal right to vote is denied. We'll look at some examples here. The first example is Saudi Arabia, where women are not allowed to vote. Another example is Estonia, where the citizenship rules make it difficult for people belonging to the Russian minority to gain the right to vote. Finally, let's look at Fiji, where the electoral system gives more value to the vote of an ethnic Fiji and less to that of an Indian Fijian. These countries cannot really be qualified as democracies because political equality for citizens is lacking. Thus, in a democracy, all adults who are citizens of the country should be allowed to vote, each vote having equal value. What happens if the popular government turns out to be undemocratic? It is possible for popular leaders to be autocratic as well, as has been seen in a number of case studies. Zimbabwe was under white minority rule till it attained independence in 1980. Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, ZANU-PF, the party that led the freedom struggle, has ruled Zimbabwe since then. The leader of the Patriotic Front is Robert Mugabe, who changed the constitution, banned protests, harassed the opposition, controlled the media, and influenced the judiciary. Thus, though elections were held regularly, they were always won by the Patriotic Front. Clearly, popular approval of the rulers is necessary in a democracy, but it is not enough to categorize a country as a democracy. In a democracy, before the elections, adequate leeway needs to be given for normal political activity and opposition. The citizens should be free to think and form opinions, to be able to express these opinions in public, form associations, and take other political actions. Additionally, all rights should apply to everyone equally. Finally, there should be an independent judiciary to protect the rights of the citizens without any political pressure. Now, let's consider the conditions that apply to the way a government is run after an election. Winning an election does not entitle a democratic government to do whatever it likes. The government in power needs to respect and honor the guarantees to the minorities. Additionally, major decisions cannot be taken without going through a number of consultations at every step. All office bearers are assigned certain rights and responsibilities by the Constitution as well as the law. They are accountable for fulfilling their responsibilities to the public as well as to other independent officials. Thus, we can deduce that a democratic government rules within the limits set by the constitutional law and the citizens' rights. That is the fourth and final feature of a democracy.